Hello everybody, welcome to Schmidt Ocean Institute Divestream 610. We are live with ROV Sebastian with the Schmidt Ocean Institute. We have just arrived in the Galapagos Islands, and if you are following along with us on our last expedition, the Cliffs Reef expedition, we spent a lot of time in this area. We are currently back to Cacho de Coral, which is a crescent outcrop off of the Galapagos Islands. The goal of this dive is to recover this current meter that we're currently looking at. This was left on the last expedition, and it's been recording data for the past few months. And it is our goal, this dive, to recover it.
You'll just have to do an intro again.
Hello everybody, this is, if you're just tuning in, this is Schmidt Ocean Institute Dive 610 with ROV Sebastian. We are currently returning to Cacho de Coral, which is a crescent seamount off of the Galapagos Islands, and our primary goal for this dive is to recover these current meters that were left on the Cliffs Reef expedition, so our last cruise. And so these sensors have been sitting out recording current data for the past 2 months, and then we're going to bring them on board and gather that data and produce that for the Galapagos so they know the currents of this area. This will be a short dive. We're just stopping by here to collect these two. We have about a 500 meter transect until the next one, and then we are off to find some hydrothermal vents north of Galapagos.
Can you read so much?
All the way far left one.
So the pip I have up for you now is our current location from where we dropped it. If we zoom out, this is Cacho de Coral. And our next current meter will be at the top of that seamount there. Little mound.
You don't need to bring this across?
Yeah, just you don't have to grab it.
So these current meters like to float, so we're storing them in our long bio box. We'll just have to tuck it in and close the box, kind of shove it in there before it pops out.
Go ahead and pump 3 over. Pump 3 close to once you get to there. You go. Now you can get your arm out of there.
Hey. Alright, yep, let's see that one.
And then slowly press 4. You might have to give it a little tuck in.
You want it right inside?
Doesn't have to go all the way in because you're gonna have to open it all up and do this
Yeah.
one more time
Yeah.
too. So,
Just close it on at a time.
yeah.
Close.
That's good. That's good.
Happy there? Very happy.
Yeah, go ahead and slowly bring your tray in, but just watch in HD2. Make sure it's not good.
Okay, so we're not tucking that completely because we're gonna have to open that box again to store the second one. So we're just tucking it in. We're gonna take a look on this area and then make our way to the second current meter.
You still sit on the bottom.
You got a button for this?
No, you're gonna keep bringing the tray.
No movement.
On the tray.
Okay. But we need to lift off. Yeah.
Have to.
Because it was dragging. Yeah, it should do a little comment. Alright, go ahead. Oh, okay, stop.
Push it up. Come back in. Oh,
Yeah. Here. Hold. I don't know.
Give him a look of what he wants to see, and then we'll try to do it. No other comments, no. Very well.
Okay, that does happen then.
But we'll deal with it. I'll just give him a say what he wants to make it work on it. What do you want to look at again?
Do you want losers?
Yes, please. Oh. Assess that. It's fine. That's it. Thank you very much.
What a hydraulic tank? Or, yeah, that one. 50 and 50.
Pop it up.
Okay, we're off. We're gonna transit all the way to, it's about 400 meters to the current meter number 2. So we're the little dot behind that flag in that pip. And we're headed all the way to the top of that mound in the background there. So we'll be ascending a little mound, and then we'll be descending and then reascending a different mound.
But the hydraulics page up on the right side.
Chimera. We have a chimera on the right.
Club feature in the mid camera.
On the last expedition, we spent a lot of time on vertical cliffs that supported coral reefs around the Galapagos Islands, which included this site, Cacho de Coral. And it was quite amazing. You'd see a lot of vertical reefs would have an abundance of coral, but then you'd also reach periods of just, not much like you see here. Or you'd also reach sections where there was a single species that completely dominated the rest of the environment. And so we saw that a lot with brittle stars or urchins. But this area is mostly just a coral rubble field. So we're just about at the top of this first mound, and then we'll go a little bit deeper before ascending the second mound. We're seeing a little bit more corals now. Hagfish. Yeah. In general, you see a higher abundance of corals at areas where there's higher currents. And that's mostly because you get more debris in the water, and you have more of a chance to grab all of the floating particles you see there. Here's that drop off I was talking about. We'll descend it.
Copy. Breach. Could you give me an updated brief on keeping moving, please?
Roger.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another chimera. So we're currently on the left flank of Cacho de Coral, which is basically a crescent-shaped feature off of Galapagos Islands. And on this left flank, before our last cruise, before we visited, the Alvin visited, and they dove on this left flank a little bit shallower than where we are now, and they spotted absolute abundance of corals. They described it as a beautiful coral garden, and yeah, so that's one of the reasons that it drew the last expedition back. They didn't have time to do more dives on this place with the Alvin, and so we returned and extensively explored different parts of this area, but we also mapped with our ship sonars this whole mound.
Come up this touch. You know, put the forge out like that.
A shark. Little one.
There's been some little cat sharks that we've gone past.
Alex just pointed out there was a cat shark. There's been a few of them.
Yeah, I don't know what the most recent one you saw was, but
I think
earlier, like
it was
right
a
when we
cat
got-
shark. Yeah, with
Okay.
spots.
Yeah. Tiny.
Tiny, yeah. The current meters were dropped by ROV Sebastian on one of the dives in this area. So the last science party picked out a good spot that they thought would get good data, and we're just here to pick them up. Where? Okay, we're starting our ascent on the second mound. Oh, there's an octopus there, just crawling along.
Yeah.
There's two. There's three. So as you notice, as we make our ascent up this mound, there's a lot more coral present, and therefore a lot more life. One of my favorite parts or things to see in this area was all of the squat lobsters that we see often just grab a item of choice that they'll hold above them for camouflage. Some might be sponges, some might be pieces of coral. I think we even saw trash maybe. But yeah, it's quite fun to see what they pick up and decide is going to be a good camouflage for them. And the fish is sitting on the coral. I love that. What is that? What is that? Goop. Mucus net? That looked big though.
Right? Yeah, can you just swim around that to 0.3?
0.3.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just gonna slow down the ship a little bit because it's pulling on us a little bit.
We actually want them.
What's that?
That's why we actually want them to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When that would benefit us to go 0.6, you can't keep it, whatever, it's like.
Current's starting to pick up as we kind of get higher on this mound. You can see that with the fish that are trying to swim against it. Also, all that snow starts to pick up.
More the local just cause a clear sale. So
Almost like I had.
yeah.
I just more flex. You want a street we headed to? What was it? Yeah.
We go to like 70. No, go to 80. Go to 80.
So for folks just joining us, this is going to be a pretty short dive. We're really just here to collect these 2 meters. And likewise, it'll be a short ascent as well.
Yep, we're just here to pop down, and also the science party is a little bit interested to see what we find down here.
Yeah, if we stumble upon something, of course we'll always have the opportunity to check that out. But this is not one of our regularly scheduled dive sites, I suppose. This was kind of opportunistic with this particular cruise that we're on now, the ultra fine scale seafloor mapping cruise, coming back to this area. The vertical reefs cruise was comfortable sort of dropping these sensors off and leaving them for this expedition to pick them up.
Yeah, it's like bringing me back to the last
know.
cruise. I feel like we're back.
All the fossil corals.
Yeah, when we first dropped down, you know, there was like just a lot of just fossil rubble, and if we had our last science party, they would have been giddy about it. Like, we need to sample.
Yep. Got to scoop
But
some
now-
bags.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Whoa.
Do you know what those fish are? Shiny ones.
Shiny fish.
Shiny happy fish. So yeah, can you see if there's any currents at this depth? What's the
Let's see. The OS-38 isn't getting. It's not showing much current, but that's where the ship is. So it might be a little bit. You're back.
You're back! You're back! One of the best places in the deep sea. Here in Galapagos.
Do you have a favorite dive from the last expedition or favorite
Favorite
moment?
dive from the last expedition? I mean, I really liked the last 2 dives in Cocos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes!
Yeah,
Those were insane.
those were really cool.
We were so lucky. Crazy.
Yeah.
Just two
So, on our last expedition, we spent most of the time in Galapagos, and then did 2 additional dives in Cocos National Park with Costa Rica. And what we did there was basically comparing sites from Galapagos to Cocos, because they're along the same ridge line. And we actually got the opportunity to see a bunch of spawning corals, which was not only amazing to see, but also rare because it all depends on timing. I think it happens a few days a year.
Yeah, it's just like once that they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't even know when because they're so they can live 100, 1,000 years.
Yeah.
They were black corals. They were all the roach.
The last expedition brought us really close to the islands, so I loved waking up to another view of the Galapagos Islands.
It was cool. Yeah, this expedition, after this dive, we're going to be headed with like a day's transit to a further site. And I think it's our furthest site for this expedition, and then we'll kind of be working our way back
Yeah.
towards the islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On our transit here, we found that when we're farther away from the islands, birds really love to hang out with us. So pretty much every spot that birds could possibly sit on our foremast, they were sitting.
Yeah. That'd kind of been my suspicion, because I'd heard from Soph on the previous cruise before I got here
So
that they had birds, but then when we were close in by the islands, we didn't have birds, so I figured the birds were just going home.
yeah, exactly.
But now we're going to be back out away from the islands again, and I anticipate having birds.
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll have pilot whales as well.
Yeah, those were cool.
The last two dives we had, I always love when we sit in the same location for a while because we just collect we're basically, we turn into a fad buoy and collect our own little ecosystem around us, and
Yeah.
it's cool. We just had pilot whales for days.
Well, it's the critters that like the shade of the ship and stuff.
Yeah. They also use the ship to kind of trap fish and hunt.
We're coming up on the top here.
Yeah, we're almost there.
So we're going to find this flow meter, or current meter. I was actually thinking there's a
Pretty similar.
cool blog you can find about the Cave Pearl project with a guy doing homemade flow meters for submerged caves. And this project just kind of reminded me of it. Same idea, where it's just got some accelerometers, and as the water moving pushes it, it can kind of tell what angle it's at and derive how hard it's being pushed from that.
Yeah. Our current artist at sea actually used similar accelerometers, and she attached them to kelp. Kelp?
Yeah, it was accelerometers, in these kelp fields.
Yeah. In
and then-
Vigo Harbor, which is in Spain, which is close to home for a lot of the crew here because we spent over a year there refitting Falkor 2. So we did the handover between Falkor Classic and Falkor 2 in Vigo. And so Elena, our artist, she then used that accelerometer data to kind of give a voice to the kelp and have her art be shaped a little bit by the kelp. So she developed this app which allows you to bring your camera on your phone up to some of her art, and the images there will start moving in the way that the kelp was moving in real life.
Yeah, using that raw data to kind of turn it into this augmented reality art. Yeah.
I love that attitude of it's so important to her to bring what to give a voice to whatever her subject is. And so when she has an unconventional subject like kelp forests, she still found a way to let them have their own voice in that project, which was very cool.
Well, and it's, you know, if you're watching a kelp forest, like, it moves, right? But in the medium of painting, how do you capture that? And so to have the painting include the data, kind of interesting.
Chimera. That was another thing on the last expedition. There was so much chimera and hagfish. Okay, the current meter should be in sight relatively soon.
Yeah, I want to say we dropped it like right at the edge.
Okay.
Or it was like a ridge or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find it.
There's another little cat shark swimming down there. What do you think is a cat shark?
Yeah, see, there's like this little saddle almost. I think it was along like the saddle. I kind of remember they put it down and then they picked it up and moved it. I remember this when they relocated. Of course, if your current really got whipping up here, could it
Oh,
get
I see it. It's
bumped down the
directly
slope?
ahead.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, Christy's.
Oh, wow, yeah, but it's healed over, huh?
Such strong current.
Strong current.
Very strong current.
Good data.
If you look into our stick camera, you get a really good idea how strong the current is by watching it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Our OS38, which is our deep current profiler on the Falcor 2, is showing almost no current on here. So it's a liar.
But it's also at a different water depth.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We're not directly under the ship. So it might be real wherever the ship is. But
Yeah, I think the current's kind of hugging the curves here.
mm-hmm.
And again, for anyone just joining us, I haven't heard any of the scientists speak up. So I imagine once we pick up this current meter, we might tool around a little bit, but we're going to be headed up pretty shortly.
Yeah, this is just a quick bonus dive for us. We came into port this morning, Porto Ayora, and
Just a few hours.
yeah, we were there to check into customs and pick up our observers. And yeah, so now we're in the park, and we'll have about another day of transit to get to hydrothermal vent field.
Yeah, so this is going to be our shallowest dive of this expedition.
I
By
know.
far.
We almost didn't get used to how shallow it is here. We're used to having so much time to prepare and to set up the waypoints during the descent, and take some good looks at any fish we see or anything in midwater. And basically 400 meters is, 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we're here.
Yeah. And I remember being kind of surprised how little stuff we saw on the ascents.
Yeah.
On the Vertical Reefs expedition.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting a lot more upwelling, and so a lot more life in the midwater,
Yeah.
but not really.
Yeah.
Some cool sharks, though, that we saw. We had the hammerheads, the prickly sharks, two of the prickly sharks, and then the cat sharks and the rough sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And chimeras.
Lots of chimeras.
And skates.
Yes.
And the torpedoes as well. We kept finding torpedoes.
What do you mean torpedoes?
The torpedo fish. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm gonna show you a picture. You're gonna be like, oh right, these guys.
Photo.
Yeah. It's a type of ray. They're electric rays, technically.
Oh.
Yeah, we kept seeing these guys. Yeah. And then it came up that the fish was named torpedo before the weapon torpedo.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, well, guess we're stuck with it. Okay, now begins the delicate process of putting this in our bio box. These things are so, the top, the white portion really likes to float, obviously, so it gets moved by the current, and it's hard. It's like poking a balloon into a bio box.
Yeah. Yeah, for folks just joining us, again, this is going to be a real short dive, but it might look familiar for anyone who tuned in last expedition on our vertical reefs of the Galapagos expedition, because this is Cacho de Coral, which was a site that we dove on a couple times during that expedition. And the team on that expedition left these current meters behind so that this expedition could pick them up. Or rather, they left them behind because this expedition could pick them up. So they've been sitting here for like a month. Few weeks at least.
Yeah.
I think these were dropped off pretty early into the expedition.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like one of the first few dives we had.
Yeah, so that's what I meant.
So again, we are diving on Cacho de Coral, which is a small feature to the northeast of Santa Cruz Island in the Galapagos Islands. As Alex mentioned, it's a short dive. We just picked up our second sensor. And we're just gonna stow these mid-water into the bio boxes. I'm not sure how long these sensors can be out for. Did they talk about that when you deployed it?
No, I don't remember what they said the batteries were on them.
Yeah. In general, before they deployed them, they organized with this chief scientist that we would pick it up. So they planned for it to be a certain amount of timeline. So usually you pre-set these to record for a certain amount of time. And I'm pretty sure there was some agreements between the science parties on when they would be picked up.
Yeah, so not gonna worry about that.
Yeah.
Alright, sure, just grab that one.
Okay, we have one in.
So there's quite a bit of concern because of shrimp traps.
So these are current sensors. So there's dive weights attached to the bottom, and then the sensor itself is an accelerometer. And so how much they bounce around is dependent on the force of the current pushing on that white material you see that we're trying to stow. And then from there they can determine the assumed current in these two locations over the few weeks that we left them.
Well, wait a second. Yes, it is.
Okay, those look pretty locked in, so we're gonna close the lid and roll with it.
Fjords are all very, and I have worked a lot in the fjords, where we're two coast of the fjord. And so some of them have really high current flow exchanges, so that they, so it
Was there any
flushes the
interest in
fjords
sticking around, or are we
vigorously because
just coming back up?
the tidal currents are high.
Coming back up? All right.
Okay, we got the thumbs up from the science party, which means we are off bottom.
So you have low oxygen areas, but even put down on the sills, the corals are so you get some up to 7 meters.
Original.
Yeah.
Are we off bottom coming to recovery?
Yeah, these sensors, we're only going to get the data from them upon recovery. Which is, while it's the standard for most deployed devices, not always the case.
Yeah, so a lot of sensors you kind of preset it in the lab to start at a certain date and a certain time, and to go for a certain amount of time based on the sensor and previous data. And then you hope that everything worked well,
Yeah.
and then you get to look at it when it's recovered.
Yeah. There are groups working on like longer term landers that have light modems on them, so the ROV can come down and blink lights at it, and it blinks lights back, and they can communicate that way. But then also you have like wired networks, like they have off of like off Vancouver with Ocean Networks Canada, where they have these powered hubs. They actually go down and plug the devices in and then reel them out and place them where they want them.
Yes, we have one of those. We have a cabled observatory north of Hawaii as well. So that's one of the nice things about having a remotely operated vehicle is you get to get real-time data and real-time cameras. It's as close as we can get to actually being there in person without leaving mission control.
Really complicated current, or
Current, because this one we picked up was straight up and down.
yeah, this one was. Yeah. Current coffee though, just then.
I think the data for the currents here, I mean, the whole expedition, we were kind of looking at the currents. This is the vertical reefs expedition that we're talking about. We were looking at the currents and the corals, because there's an interaction there. As Juliana mentioned, like, as the currents ramp up, you'll see perhaps more abundance of corals because those currents can bring food. But that cruise actually discussed, like, your currents can get too bad for corals as well if the food particles are just whipping past those little the polyps can't really necessarily grab them. But yeah, they were just trying to understand better the relationships between the corals on these vertical faces and the currents that are in those vertical faces. And we were doing the CTDs at the same time. Some of those dives for like 12 hours, we were dipping the CTD up and down, and that was giving them another form of data in how the tides would impact the waters in the area as well, because if we're running that for 12 hours, we're getting through a tidal cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It was just these two current sensors. Yeah, we're just down here to grab these two, and then we are headed back up. And we are headed back up now, and pretty shallow dive. It's gonna take like a half hour, maybe tops, to get up. Probably not that long.
Hopefully we'll see something on the ascent.
Maybe. Yeah.
Seamount circuits, that's all about. And also forge.
Somewhat is good because we went down on the street.
Yeah.
433. I mean, expect that. Let's see if it's going to walk up over here. It should be good.
We'll see. It didn't go up at all. No matter how warm it got, which is weird. Although it didn't really get that hot.
Normally goes up.
Yeah, the door goes up due to heat and to the weirdness.
That's probably what we did yesterday.
Right? Right?
This is that side of it.
It's
Little,
definitely
like
an indication that something's different. Yeah.
Not popping off.
No, not nowhere near. So we'll see.
Did you turn off the lasers?
Too long. Did my life?
Sorry, what?
Nothing. Lasers on.
Yeah, I wanted them on 20 minutes ago.
Hit him a favor. Stretch really hard.
Aim for the glasses.
So rude.
No, my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now we're out of that. Whatever was down there. And
No current?
just check it out. Hey, you're flying in the vortex.
Yeah, I remember on the last expedition, suddenly we would hop up and there would be an insane amount of current to the point where we'd have to poke down and hide before we could even move anywhere. And so the currents around this area are pretty strong, and they're heavily tide dependent, we've found as well.
Yeah, I was mentioning this blog earlier about the guy making pretty cheap, like DIY flow or current meters, and honestly, check it out if you're into like tinkering. I think he was using Arduino and PVC pipes, basically. Really cool. But that is thecavepearlproject.org. And that was a cool little example of sort of DIY instrumentation.
So this area is a site that our last chief scientist decided to visit based on an expedition that the Atlantis had, and they deployed human submersible Alvin, which explored this area called Cacho de Coral. And when they dropped down, it was their last, I believe, their last dive before they headed out of this area. And they found a really abundant coral community, which was a little bit shallower than where we were today. So that team marked this area as something that needs to be explored further and come back to. And so our last expedition heeded their advice, and we spent a bunch of dives in Cacho de Coral area on different sites to investigate the coral communities there. And when they were on those dives in Cacho de Coral, they left us those current meters so that they'll collect that current data for the Galapagos. And so this chief scientist agreed to come back and pick up those currents so that we could have the data when just over about a month of recording. and then we'll take it on board and distribute that data to the science party.
Can you put me in recovery? Crazy card on my Charles, like, don't want this right now. That's okay. So, I don't know what to make of this.
We are transferring oil from one to another.
Just beautiful.
So yeah, short dive, but we figured kind of a familiar area, kind of cool to have this throwback to last expedition. But once ROV's back on deck, we're going to be transiting for about a day, as we head pretty far out there, comparatively, and see some more vents. Which, you know, while this was visiting an area visited last expedition, later this expedition we'll be visiting areas from 2 expeditions ago.
Yes.
So yeah.
Full circle
Full
in
circle.
the Galapagos, for sure. This is actually our last expedition of this year and the foreseeable future in the
Well,
Galapagos Islands.
In the Galapagos, sorry. Yeah, I was like, no, we've got part 2 of Octo Odyssey.
No,
But
yes.
yeah, this will be our last in the Galapagos this year.
Yeah.
It's been cool.
It's been great.
Yeah, climate's very nice.
It is, especially since we're at the equator.
Yeah.
It is such a perfect temperature.
Sure.
And that's mostly due to the upwelling of currents that happen here. It really cools down the Galapagos Islands.
Alright. So yours?
I got control. I don't hear you though.
Yeah, it's all yours.
No, I got you. Alrighty. Coming in. I thought we were closer. Whatever.
Yeah, it's 218.
Good enough.
How is it on?
Yeah, we've got a little while longer on this particular expedition. This is going until November 23rd, and then there'll be a little bit of turnover, just changing out the science teams and changing out some of the crew on board. Sophia will be coming back on board.
Sophia!
Juliana and I will be heading home. Chris will be heading home.
Anyone else going home?
Yeah, and then they'll be headed back up to Costa Rica to do part 2 of Octopus Odyssey, which will also be recovering instruments.
What was the first cruise of your hitch with Hitch?
Whatever was in August.
That was the Galapagos?
I don't know.
Venting.
What was the first cruise at Panama Canal?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That would have been Octopus Odyssey, though.
Yeah, we did
Whew.
Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and then whatever was out of Puerto Rico after that.
Mhm.
Did Butterfly was the second one, and then the ship transited, and I met the ship in Panama,
Yeah.
and here I am.
Yeah. I think Chris is our longest running crew member currently. He's been on the ship for many, many months. And you're getting off in Panama where you got on.
Comes full circle.
Full circle. You will be missed.
Yeah. I was actually scheduled for this next one, but they're like, hey, come on.
That
We've
was-
had.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to comment on this. We've had pretty fair seas while we've been here, although I did hear that off some of the islands you can get a little rougher water. So, but we've had it pretty good.
That's right, Chris with a K. Correct.
So yeah, November 23rd is when this particular expedition is going until. Excited to get back down to some of the vents.
So we have floats on surface, and so we will begin our recovery procedures here in Mission Control. So we are going to sign off, and we'll see you in a little bit over a day for our next dive. It'll be a deep one. It'll be to some hydrothermal venting. So thank you guys again. That was a quick one, but a little taste of the Galapagos before we head out into deeper waters, and we'll see you soon. Do you want to say bye, Alex?
Sure. We'll see you at the vents.
Goodbye.